Hi, I'm Andre, and I'm a black nerd, and it's time once again for one of my nostalgia flashbacks, this time sponsored by Marvel Puzzle Quest. Marvel Puzzle Quest is the match 3 puzzle RPG featuring all of your favorite Marvel characters from the Marvel Universe, and I'm talking about the entire Marvel Universe. Marvel Puzzle Quest has characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it has X-Men in it, there's Storm, there's Wolverine. They even recently added more X-Men like Gambit, Nightcrawler, and even Rogue, sugar. You get your team together, you fight different storylines written by Marvel writers. You can compete in tournaments and weekly events. There's leaderboards, all kinds of fun stuff. If you download Marvel Puzzle Quest using the link that I have in the description, not only do you download the game for absolutely free, but you also get, in addition to it, a 3-star Deadpool. Even the merc with a mouth, Deadpool, you can play as Deadpool in Marvel Puzzle Quest. That's if you use the link in my description. The game is absolutely free to download. It's free to play. Get the game as well as that Deadpool because you want to play with Deadpool. Why wouldn't you? Deadpool wants to play with you. As I have mentioned many times on this channel, I've been more of a learning comic book characters from movies and TV shows and cartoons than I have learning from the actual comic books that they came from. That's how I grew up. Do not judge me. You lived your life, I lived mine. I thought I would look back at all of my childhood to remember those moments when I first laid eyes on various Marvel characters. Feel free to tell your ways of you learning about these characters for the first time in the comments as I go along with them. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, you're gonna hear animated series a lot in this list because I grew up in the early days of cable, the television, not cable the character. So in addition to the cartoons that came out in the 80s and 90s, there were also a lot of cable channels that were rerunning cartoons from the 60s and 70s. So if you hear some of these older cartoons on my list of some of the first ways I've seen some of these characters, just know that's why I saw them. I might be older, but I'm not ancient. It should be obvious that the character I have dealt with the most throughout my childhood, throughout my nostalgia, is Spider-Man. And I'm talking all the way back to the Electric Company. They used to have these live action segments of the Electric Company featuring Spider-Man. And be like, Spider-Man, where are you coming from, Spider-Man? Nobody knows who you You'd have a guy dressed up as Spider-Man going through comic book panels, and they would have like bubbles pop up. Spider-Man did not talk, he just had bubbles pop up over his head. Then of course there was these Spider-Man animated shows. There was the old 60s animated series they used to show from time to time on cable channels in between shows. I can't remember which cable channel did that, but I remember someone used to show like the old Spider-Man from the 60s. And of course I grew up on the 80s Spider-Man shows, like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Then of course for me in the 90s kids, there was the Spider-Man animated series that aired on Fox Kids. Spider-Man. I think for a lot of 90s kids, that probably was their true introduction to Spider-Man, was that series, because it was a good series. That's one of those cartoons that I wish I could go back and revisit and watch in full, because I don't feel like I appreciated it as much at the time as I probably do now whenever I see clips of it. The same thing goes for another cartoon, which I'll be mentioning later. And of course, the Sam Raimi movies. But as far as comic book goes, I actually remember reading an issue of the Ren and Stimpy comic book where Powdered Toast Man met Spider-Man. Who says I never read comics when I was a kid? I even remember when cartoons were made by Marvel Productions, like in the 80s, there used to be a actual Marvel Productions company. They used to have a logo that would air at the end of the cartoons, and it would be a giant M, a giant P, and then Spider-Man would come in and just like rest himself on top of the logo. So you'd be watching Muppet Babies, you're watching Baby Kermit, Baby Piggy, and then all of a sudden at the very end, and there was Spider-Man just hanging on the logo. Bye-bye. So thank you, Spider-Man, for being my entry-level point into the Marvel Universe. It was because of you, Spider-Man. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Everybody gets one. So you probably are aware that in the late 70s, early 80s, there was an Incredible Hulk TV show. Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk. They used to show that show all the time in syndication after the show ended. I think that show had a longer runtime in reruns than it did in its original run, and I caught those reruns. So that was my first connection with the Incredible Hulk, was that television show. But I do remember that the Incredible Hulk also had an animated series in the 90s. There used to be this block that would air on syndication, like on UPN channels or whatever. They would call it the Marvel Action Hour, and it would just be like a block of Marvel cartoons. There was like a Hulk cartoon and a couple others I'll mention later. But I remember a Hulk series at that time. But seriously, it's all about Lou Ferrigno. You brought the Hulk into my world, and I appreciate that. Iron Man! That was one of the other cartoons I remember. He had a 90s animated series as part of that Marvel Action Hour. And I don't remember that much about it because I didn't watch it religiously. I just remember watching the promos for it in a couple of episodes. But that was my first time ever really seeing Iron Man. So it was really the movie that got me mostly into who Iron Man was, who Tony Stark was. I vaguely remembered some things from that cartoon and from other random appearances of Iron Man, but the movie really is what surfaced it. So I had a little taste of Iron Man back in the day, and then I got the full scoop of Iron Man when that movie came out with Robert Downey Jr. Okay, here's the weird thing about Captain America. I know that I've known about Captain America ever since I was a kid, but I don't know how. He's had so many just random appearances. He did guest appearances in other cartoon shows, like he was in Spiderman a couple times. There were like some old bad TV movies that used his character. There was a bad theatrical movie that used his character. I think I must have seen that at some point. Then of course there was the Marvel versus Capcom games and he was in those. I don't know. I don't know what was the specific point when I was like, Captain America, I know who you are, but I just know that I knew him for years. Not the whole like backstory about him, I just remember him. Oh, he died. There was like a big death of Captain America comic thing, and I remember that was on the news. And that was a news story. It was like, Captain America's gonna die, or he used a gun, or there was something that happened in the Captain America comics. I remember it was a big deal, and they put it in the news. So maybe that's how I know him. I don't know how I know Captain America. I just know that I knew him. I don't know. Did he ever do like any like promos or something? You know, like did he ever do any PSAs or something like that? Maybe that's how I know him. Maybe they used him in like a comic book ad or a magazine ad or a commercial to like teach us to not, you know, drink stuff from under the sink or something. Or turn off our lights, conserve our energy. That just seems like the type of thing that you would use Captain America for, and maybe that's where I saw him. I'm gonna figure it out, Captain America. And not only do I feel this way about Captain America, but I also feel this way about Thor. Same thing. I know Thor for a long time. I mean, obviously, I know Thor from like mythology. Thor, the comic book character, the Marvel Comics character, same thing. I'm like, I know I've seen him from something. I know he did that, there was a movie with him and Incredible Hulk, the TV show Incredible Hulk, where he was a character in like a movie or something like that, or an episode. I know that there was the movie Adventures in Babysitting, and there was a whole storyline about one of the kids being a big fan of Thor and then meeting somebody who she thought was Thor. So maybe it was that, or maybe I just like saw him on a shirt or something. You learn about these characters, and that's what's interesting about them in regards to pop culture, is that even when you don't read the comic books religiously about these characters, somehow, some way, they make their way into your brain so that when you finally see a movie about them or a new animated series about them, you're like, oh, I remember that character. I don't know how, but I do. And apparently he turned into a southern lady when you see him again. Oh, that Thor, I remember him. We go way back. Oh, good old Thor. Oh, Thor used to come over and eat biscuits and cornbread with me. The Fantastic Four. So the Fantastic Four had a number of animated series. It had an old Hanna-Barbera animated series, but they used to rerun that. So they used to rerun it on Boomerang, back when Boomerang used to show a lot of that old stuff, or even Cartoon Network. There was also another Fantastic Four show that I remember watching, but for some reason they had like a robot. I know there was a 90s Fantastic Four show, but I didn't watch that one that much, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't, because I've actually heard it's pretty good. And that version of Fantastic Four apparently had an episode that featured Black Panther. And if I would have seen that, I probably would have known more about Black Panther earlier than later. And that's a shame on me. Should be ashamed of myself. And then of course the movies with Jessica Alba. Because how could you die? Featuring a not yet Captain America as the Human Torch. Well, since I already mentioned him, Black Panther. I feel really bad. I feel like I should have learned about him a lot earlier than I did. I knew about the Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party, I knew about that. I know it's completely unrelated. I used to go to a predominantly black school, and the mascot was a panther. So does that count? I would say my first true like Black Panther, oh my god, this character is awesome, actually happened at San Diego Comic-Con. There's a panel that they have every year called the Black Panel, and they have a bunch of different black people that are from movies, TV, comic books into one room, and it's a really fun panel. And I remember one year Reginald Hudlin came because he was promoting that Black Panther motion comic series that he did for BET. He showed us like some test animation from it, so I don't know if BET ever actually officially aired it. I know it's available now on DVD and stuff like that, but that was my first time where I got like a history lesson. Like he went through like Here's what Black Panther is all about. Here's how he beat the crap out of Captain America. Here's how he appeared in the Fantastic Four. I was like, oh, okay, wow. Thank you for this lesson. And then when he showed up in Civil War, Wakanda, I was like, I know what's up. The X-Men. Of course, the animated series on Fox. That was the other one. I mentioned earlier about how I didn't give the Spider-Man cartoon as much respect as I probably should have back when it was out. X-Men definitely that way. I've never watched it in its entirety and I want to. Is it available? Like, can you get it anywhere? Can it stream anywhere, or does it stream anywhere? Or are all the episodes out on DVD possibly? Please let me know, because I would love to just get every episode of X-Men and do a marathon, because I want to see that show again. I remember liking it, but I got to that age where I was trying to be all older and trying to be all cooler and doing other stuff, and I also was getting more involved in school and community activities. So sometimes my Saturday mornings around that time were not as strong viewing time as I was in the past. So I feel like I need to give X-Men some more love. But that was definitely my introduction to Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm and all the X-Men's, all of them X-Men's, and of course the X-Men arcade game as well. I got to give props to that. The classic beat 'em up, like that was part of the trifecta of beat 'em ups. You had the Turtles beat 'em up games, you had the Simpsons, and you had the X-Men. You had those three games in your local arcade or at your local putt-putt. You just like get all the tokens in there, all the tokens. And if you found an X-Men machine that had the 6 players, like you could usually do 4 players, but you had 6 characters to choose from. But if you ever found one that had where you could be all 6 players on a giant screen, take all the tokens. Deadpool. I learned about Deadpool first from Comic-Con. Cosplayers. Thank you, cosplayers. You're the reason I learned about Deadpool. Probably not the best way to learn about Deadpool, but that was the way I learned it. Some of y'all, and you know who you are, like y'all legit Deadpool cosplayers. Some of y'all other folks, look, just because you put a Deadpool costume on don't just mean that you just get carte blanche to do whatever you want and say whatever you want. I almost smacked a Merc in the mouth a couple of times from their little jokes around me. Watch yourself, Deadpools. We ain't playing around with that nonsense no more. It was cute. It was never cute. Daredevil! The Ben Affleck movie. I'm sorry. That's how I learned it. I'm sorry. Guardians of the Galaxy. The movie. Sorry. Captain Marvel. When's that movie come out? Whenever that movie comes out, that's when I learned about Captain Marvel. Look, there just was not a comic book shop close to me when I was a kid. I'm sorry. Do not put that nerd nonsense on me. I had other ways of being nerdy. There are more ways of dorking yourself out than reading the comic book, okay? Trust me, I found all the other ways. Wasn't that many people running around going, oh, Andre doesn't read as many comic books as these other nerds. Clearly, he's the cool one. That's not how it worked. You're lucky today with your digital subscription services. And finally, Howard the Duck. So for all the crap I've talked about not knowing some of these characters until the late 90s or even to the present day with their movies, Howard the Duck I knew about back in the 80s thanks to one classic film. Oh man, I don't know why, but every time I think of the Howard the Duck movie, I have this vivid memory of watching the movie, I think on like HBO or something. The part where they're doing the whole rock concert thing and Leah Thompson and Holly Robinson are dancing around going, Howard the Duck, woo! And then Howard the Duck comes out and he starts rocking with them and they're doing the whole, he's like dancing and stuff. And I remember distinctly Howard the Duck turning around and shaking his booty to the crowd, and my mom lost her mind. She thought that was like the funniest thing in the world, that this little tiny duck was shaking his tail feathers and was just digging a song. Howard the Duck, woo! See, sometimes you learn about comic book characters from your parents. So thanks, Mom, for watching Howard the Duck so I can learn about him at a young age. So there you have it. Those are some of my Marvel memories. Marvel memories. What are some of yours? How did you first learn about some of these popular Marvel characters of today, back in the day? Let me know in the comments. Thank you once again. Again, a big shout out to Marvel Puzzle Quest for sponsoring this video. Make sure you click that link in the description so you can get that game as well as the free Deadpool along with it. But the game is free to download regardless. Thumbs up this video, and if you're new here, please subscribe. I love you like a play cousin. I'm Audi 5000. Chain Chomp Eel.